60s. I came of age in the 70s, a time when I think a lot of the steam out of the civil rights movement had started to wane. But what I think motivated me and propelled me were a set of values that I developed and were nurtured in me by my mother, by professors and mentors who were older. In high school, I was not somebody who, I was a little bit of a goof-off in high school and wasn't really focused as much as I should have been, I think, on service. But when I came into college and I started becoming aware of not only the history of our people, but more importantly, the role of ordinary people in doing extraordinary things, then I became obliged, I think, to get involved. So my first activism came around what was probably the major issue in the late 70s, early 80s, was the anti-apartheid movement and the efforts to get universities to divest from South Africa as a means of exerting pressure on the apartheid government there. And so I became very active in that at the same time as I started to become active in community organizations that were focused on neighborhoods surrounding the college campuses where I was attending. And because of those experiences, by the time I got out of college, I decided that I wanted to be a organizer at the grassroots level. But like many in my generation, I think, who have good impulses, it wasn't necessarily that easy to do good. There were more jobs on Wall Street than there were jobs in social service organizations because those service organizations oftentimes don't have the funding to really develop a large pool of employees. But I was fortunate. There were a group of churches out on the far south side of Chicago. I was living in New York at the time. There were a group of churches in Chicago that were trying to figure out how to deal with the devastation of steel plants that had closed and racial turnover that had taken place in the communities. And these churches didn't have a lot of money, so all they could afford was to hire somebody who didn't know what they were doing. And so I was able to get that job, and that allowed me then to really learn at a grassroots level what it meant to advocate on behalf of education programs and job training programs and housing and other issues that were impacting the inner city. And I think that that trajectory has continued all the way to my U.S. Senate service.